Welcome to Becoming is Messy, where we dive deep into the journey of survival, transformation, and everything in between. I'm your host, Megan Dawson, here to share the honest, unfiltered stories behind my own process of becoming. Becoming is Messy is brought to you by the Unperfect Life Collective, a growing movement rooted in authenticity, wholeness, and the courage to live what's real. Life isn't a pretty and perfect straight line, and neither is becoming the person we're meant to be. Here, we embrace the ups, the downs, and all the beautiful, chaotic, messy moments that shape who we are. Whether you're in the thick of change or reflecting on past transformations, this space is for real conversations about what it means to grow, stumble, and rise again. So get comfy, settle in, and let's get messy. Hello, Messies. Welcome back to another episode where we explore the real stories behind growth, reinvention, and what it actually takes to step in to your full potential. Today's conversation aligns so beautifully with the Level Up Competency Unapologetically Love Your Authentic Self. Because so often the biggest barrier between where we are and where we want to go isn't talent or opportunity. It's the stories, patterns, and limitations we've unknowingly accepted about ourselves. Today, I am joined by Diana Pagano, an international keynote speaker, two-time national best-selling author, mindset coach, entrepreneur, and creator of the More Mindset. I'm going to say that again. And creator of the More Mindset, a framework focused on breaking mental limits and helping people achieve exponential results in business and in life. A proud first-generation Mexican-American from San Diego, Diana's journey from adversity to achievement now fuels the work that she does, empowering others to think bigger, move differently, and fully own their potential. Diana, welcome to Becoming is Messy.
Thank you so much for having me, Megan.
Help us set the stage for our conversation today and tell us a little bit about the season that you're currently in.
Oh my gosh, the season that I'm currently in. How much time do we have? I'm just kidding. So yes, no, I mean, I'm still, promoting my book, The More Mindset. It's been quite an adventure. It's been a lifelong dream to finally have a message that I care deeply about out into the world. I'm also, as well, hosting and Make Things Happen podcast. So that's keeping me busy and launching my one-to-many group coaching that I know has been very valuable in the past. And I'm bringing it back next month. So very busy with that. And then just being a hockey mom, not just, but a hockey mom is a full-time job, I feel like, in and of itself.
Yes, for sure. And tell us a little bit about your hockey family. Who are the kids in your household?
Oh my goodness, Chesko and Anthony, they're 10 and my 12-year-old, he just turned 12. They're about a year and a half apart. And yeah, it's busy. They're competitive hockey players. They're, travel hockey is a real thing. I'll never forget my little ones are only mostly a year and 4 months apart, but my smallest one, my youngest one, he's 10 and a half, and he was, playing with our wood floors, practically ruining them, and with a little, mini hockey stick. And I said to my husband, he wants to play hockey. And he's like, just pushing it off and pushing it off. And then Anthony was like 5 years old, and he's like, he wouldn't let it go. When you look at it now, you're like, 5-year-old, what does a 5-year-old know? But, they know a lot. And so I said, if you don't sign him up for hockey, I will. The kid doesn't, he wants to do it. He won't stop. Obviously they're little. So you think that, oh, he wants baseball, he wants football, he wants soccer. Like they want all the sports, but he just wanted hockey. And my husband played hockey for a short time when he was a teenager. And he said, do you have any idea the commitment that hockey has? You don't know what you're in for. And that's it. That did it. And then my oldest of my youngest two, anyways, he said he saw Anthony on the ice and he looked at him like, I want to do it too. And so to this day, he says that he's in hockey because of his younger brother. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's crazy, but it's fun. And it definitely teaches you resilience at a young age. And even as a mom, as a parent, you're traveling, it's it's a crazy world in and of itself. I could write a book about it.
Oh, I love that. That's exciting. I grew up in New Jersey, and hockey wasn't big where I grew up. But here in Wisconsin, I've lived now for 23 years, and I love the hockey culture out here. Our youngest daughter is who was on a hockey team the longest. And so she did it all the way through eighth grade. Would have loved to have done it in high school, but her high school does not yet have a female hockey team. And so we so hope that eventually is in the cards, because it was a little sad to see her career stop. Although she is now a manager for the boys team. So she at least is still immersed in that culture, and really been so awesome for her journey. So we love it too. Very cool. All right. So you told us a little bit about your season. Now walk us backwards. Every becoming story has its own messy path. Walk us through some of the twists and turns that led you to this season.
I think, I can't really talk about what led me here without talking about the very beginning. I think that we carry, as I'm sure you know, so much from childhood. And I remember beautiful moments. I remember hard moments, and then you just, it builds you in a way that you don't realize until you really are dealing with things yourself, and you're just like, wait, everything kind of ties together. I grew up believing that really life was hard, and I thought life had to be hard because that's what I saw. It's not like my parents said, life has to be hard. No, no one ever said that. And I know that they did the best that they knew how at that moment. And so I share this because as adults, we end up more times than not living the same cycles that we saw growing up until we identify, hey, this is a cycle that keeps repeating it. And you see such, beliefs inherited, generational beliefs inherited through generations and generations. And I'm not saying it affects everybody. Obviously, people still charge ahead and make things happen in their life, and they grew up poverty or maybe abused. I mean, there's so many stories out there that we know about. And so that's kind of how it started for me, is just seeing my parents. I say that they were struggling entrepreneurs because they worked for themselves. And you saw the hard knocks that brought, and showing what real resilience and grit was, because it wasn't like they were thriving, we were surviving. We were always just looking to survive above water and stay afloat. And so we moved all the time because we were getting evicted, quite frankly. And I don't want to say it negatively, like against my parents, because I know how much love I was showered with, like that, the faith in God that He'll get us through the hard times, even if they're hard and ugly and messy. But soon after I got married at a very young age, and I ended up, choosing the wrong partner and was abusive, and that whole thing. And I got the courage after 7 years and 2 kids later with him to make a different choice, to see my life better. And I think that that's a lot what keeps us stuck, is when you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, then you can't move forward, right? You stay in darkness. Darkness isn't meant to stay forever. And so that really built my resilience even more. And then I was a single mom. I pursued real estate. So, and I do talk about this in my book. With being a single mom, it has its own challenges in and of itself. And going into real estate, I just really wanted to provide my kids a better experience than what I guess my brothers and I had growing up. And I remember, Megan, just going for the deal, going for the survival mode mindset, just like living it really. And I remember saying, what's that secret sauce? Like, what's the thing? Why? I would see people in my office, like top producers when I pursued real estate, how successful they were. And I was just hungry to just pay my electric bill. Nah, forget the fancy stuff. Like, I just wanted to survive. I just wanted to like pay my rent and like all that stuff. And so, yeah, and I remember just kind of enthralling myself in the Bible, on God's teachings, on books about the mind and the brain and how that works from like science perspectives too. So I was very much self-taught, and by doing myself, by being obsessed with my own human behavior. Why did I succeed sometimes and other times I fell flat on my face? Now people might say, oh, of course, that's just life. The economy sometimes is booming and then it's not. Like, no kidding, life, yes. But when you are single-handedly self-sabotaging, that's no longer like, well, life has its ups and downs. I don't think it ever will stop having ups and downs. that is life. But what I'm talking about is the life that we ourselves, that I single-handedly was impacting the results based on how I was performing, the insecurities that I was bringing to the table, self-sabotaging language patterns that I was literally having. You have this self-talk and you think it's normal, you're just having thoughts, but it is normal to have these thoughts. It's not going to serve you if you don't make a new choice. And so that's where it started, and it was very messy. I mean, there was times I didn't know how I was going to pay my mortgage when I bought a house. I moved to a really nice neighborhood in Scottsdale, Arizona. I bought what I thought was my dream car at the time, a BMW, X5, and I was like, "Wow, I have enough money to pay my mortgage, my bills for 6 months, and if I wanted to, like, take a month off," like, I was just thinking, like, "Wow, I never had that." And so, when I had the biggest success, the money in the bank account, it didn't stay because I was unconsciously living on fear. And sometimes consciously, quite frankly. It wasn't all unconscious, but a lot of it is unconscious that we don't always know that we're carrying with us. And that's why, it is messy. And I don't think it's a bad thing, right? Like being messy along the way brings you to where you're meant to where you're meant to be and what you're meant to, I guess, end up in life. And even then it keeps going.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I have goosebumps because you said so many things that I relate to, that I feel aligned to. I left the abusive marriage I've also right at the 7 year mark. It was a month before the 7 year anniversary. We had one child. We had the BMW Z4 convertible. Yeah, we had the big house. We had, but similarly, the money was coming in decent when we were young. We did have that with college degrees and good jobs right out of college. I also grew up in that survival home and instinct with very little money. And so as soon as you get that money after being in survival for so long, you just feel this like urge to get all the things, to keep up with the Joneses and in the way that you grew up kind of, I feel like idolizing in some ways. And so I'm curious. So, folks that are listening have heard me talk ad nauseum about my leaving of that situation, and essentially then the seven competency frameworks that were born out of my experience leaving. And so I'm curious for you, when you started getting that kind of nudge, you're reading the Bible, you're starting to feel that urge to be curious about yourself. How could you just help us understand a little bit? Because just think of somebody right now that's spiraling, that's continuing to be in a crappy relationship or a bad job that's keeping them small. What are some tips that you have for people like you? What did that look like for you to connect the dots to eventually get to a point of self-love?
Absolutely. I think, one of the biggest things, if you feel stuck, first off, it's a very overused word, like stuck. You're not stuck. You just are overthinking. Oftentimes you're overthinking everything. And oftentimes you're truly looking in the rear view mirror at what you didn't do, at what you did, at where you're not in life, at what other people are doing. So you're comparing yourselves, right? But when you live an honest life, when you can own your baggage, like truly own it for what it is, not for what it should have been, own it for what it is. And that's so freeing, Megan, because we're constantly, look, when you're stuck, anyways, I was looking at the past, even if the past was yesterday or the past was a year ago or the past was a week ago, we can't turn back time. But one thing we'll always have is the ability to control the here and the now. And when you own your stuff, if you bring accountability, and when I don't care what position you're in, I don't care what business you're in, how old you are, male or female, it doesn't discriminate. When you are not taking accountability, as hard as it might be for some people to swallow, like, it's not me, it's my boss, it's my coworker, it's my business partner, it's the market, it's COVID. I mean, we all heard that experience, right? Like, those are real things. Maybe it is true. Maybe you are knocking on doors and you're looking for that job, or you're looking for that, publisher. Once upon a time I was. Whatever the circumstance is not the reason to stay stuck. It's your reaction to the circumstance. It's how you're showing up. You have to show up in your best way in whatever way that looks like, even if it's not your best way, but you have to show up, you have to do something. And so I start with accountability because oftentimes people, and we point the finger. We point the finger of why we're not starting the thing. We point the finger that now is not, or even just excuses. We're not, doing the thing, or I'm not good enough because I've never been able to do this. Those are excuses. And when you just take accountability for what it is that, what role you play in the thing that's not working for you, what role you play in being stuck, that's not a lot of people start there. They're like, well, why am I stuck? I just don't know. I don't have clarity. And it's like, well, then look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and own what you didn't do and what you did do, and like own what part you play and what can you do. Let's move you forward now. Because I don't like to spend a lot of time. I personally do not like to spend time on our weaknesses of the past. It's done. It's what are you doing now moving forward? There is a moment to look at the past, Megan, to learn lessons, to see what you could have done differently. There's power in that. I've seen people want to sit there in boardrooms and want to spend with their leadership team all kinds of time on their weaknesses or shortcomings in the past. And I'm like, move on. Like, spend time doing it, but spend more time executing the future and what part you play in it. Right. And it's oftentimes people are stuck because they can't see, again, the light at the end of the tunnel. They're only seeing the here and the now. But let's imagine that the here and now, whatever that is, the money, the education, whatever it is, the divorce, whatever circumstance you're in, forget that that exists for a moment. You go back to, thinking about it. But right now, for a moment, you're going to let it go and you're going to pretend that it doesn't exist. What would your life look like? Well, if I had all the money in the world, I'd go back to school. I would do this, right? Now you start bringing ideas, solutions, because you just rewired your brain and you just created, just by that question that I just asked you for a moment, just pretend that your current limitations do not exist for a moment and imagine where would your life be? What would you do? And then all of a sudden you start imagining things. You start creating new neural pathways because you're seeking for something that you've been blocked to even seek. Right. And I think that's a very, for a lot of realists, it's hard to do that because they're like, well, this is my reality. And I say this all the time. If I only focused on my reality, that publishers were not giving me the time of day once upon a time, the reality of my mortgage maybe not being able to be paid, if I focused on that reality, I wouldn't have found a new way, a new option, a new solution, a new breakthrough. And that's where that comes from. It comes from you saying the right things to yourself and allowing windows of opportunities to come. But when you're so closed and not thinking and not seeing, you ask a little kid, I say this all the time, you ask a little 6-year-old, what do you want for Christmas? And they're going to go crazy and tell you and write the little letter to Santa. And they're going to go to town with no hesitation.
That's right.
You ask a middle-aged person, male or female, like I said, I don't care how old you are, what do you want to accomplish this year by the end of 2020, whatever year we're in, by the end of the year that you actually accomplished it? They, more times than not, Megan, there's hesitation. There's like deer in headlights. Why? Because they're so focused on who they are today, what the lack is today, that it's blocking you from stepping into who you want to be. You got to act as if you're there, you're arriving, and it's all going to work out. But it only works out when you start marching towards it and start thinking differently.
So true. I feel like everything you're saying to me, it just makes me feel kind of goosebumps just because I believe in it so much. And I find that as you look inward, as you look at the mess, you start owning the mess and you start having conversations like you've just described that are future facing, even for a moment. There's something so powerful about just that little seed of possibility that I believe snowballs. It just, if you just, it's like, kind of the idea of taking the first step, motion, action. You sitting, not addressing it is never going to change your situation. But these little seeds or these little momentum moments are going to start getting bigger and bigger and start snowballing.
Absolutely. And it's interesting when you said that, when you take the action, I mean, people are not always feeling so confident. And they think that when the money arrives, when they hire me for the job, then I'll get more confidence. But just you, believe it or not, the people don't understand, and I never did once, I never did before, is that you have to first influence yourself. And that's something that's so overlooked. I don't think we talk about enough that the influence happens on ourselves first, because you could fool anybody around you, but you can't fool yourself. So when you are like saying, I'm going to do the thing, or I'm going to apply for the jobs, or I'm going to put this out there, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start the book, I'm going to start the podcast, whatever it is, and you don't follow through, maybe nobody's waiting for you to turn in the homework, but you know you didn't do the thing that you said you were going to do. And give yourself grace. I'm not saying that everything has to be perfect and that you said you're going to start on Monday to write your first chapter and then Monday comes along, you didn't do it, that you suck. No, but you're unconsciously showing yourself that you're not dependable, that you don't follow through. And that's what most people overlook, is that you have to influence yourself to the magnitude. You have to influence yourself and say, I am dependable. I do the thing that I say I'm going to do. And even when I don't, I make up for it. You know, it's a journey. It's a journey that you fall in love with the journey, the messiness, the, oh my gosh, I didn't do the thing, but get back on the saddle. That's it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and I think like what you just described there, I think is you maybe you keep skipping the book. Maybe you keep skipping going to the gym even though you're saying you're going to. I've found for myself now is my that step is too big for me at that moment. Now I just need to chunk it down even more. And so maybe I'm not going to write the first chapter of a book. Maybe I'm just going to journal on a sentence or two that I feel inspired about the book. Maybe I'm not going to go to the gym today, but maybe I can take a walk in my neighborhood. It's like I think sometimes we just set ourselves up for failure because we're setting ourselves up to have to do the big thing first that is too big for us in this moment. But if you start with the first step being smaller, again, I feel like it helps you eventually get to that point, and you do build that trust with yourself along the way.
Oh, 100%. Even research, Megan, will show you, and you can look it up. Research shows that your hardest step of anything is the first step. But once you take the first step, research shows that you'll likely take the second and then the third. But it does require consistency, because I've seen people begin and they're on track and they're like on it and they're like on step 30 and then they hit a snag and then their unconscious is like, see, I told you couldn't do the thing. You shouldn't have started this. It's like from past beliefs, past things. And what I want everybody understanding is that we do live more than 85% on an unconscious level. We repeat the same habits that we did yesterday and the day before. But in order for you to change those, is knowing, I believe wholeheartedly, and I started to practice this, is like, I have awareness, because awareness is like, as long as you know that, hey, I'm going to start doing the thing, I'm going to start going to the gym, I'm going to start doing something that maybe I was uncomfortable to begin before. But as long as you know, along the way, I'm going to be tempted to stop. I'm going to be challenged. I might feel frustrated. I might second guess myself. As long as you know that, it's almost like you're waking up in the morning, you're putting on your bulletproof to rejection, and you're like, hey, I might hit a snag. But when you're dedicated and you commit that no matter what, I'm going to have a mindset of I'm going to do whatever it takes to still push through. Believe it or not, that empowers you. And you're already aware before the storm happens that, hey, if I hit a snag, I will keep going.
So much of your work centers around what you call the more mindset, which I just love. What does that phrase actually mean to you?
The more mindset is about what is it that is lacking in your life, because it doesn't have to. So what's the more look like for you? Whether you want more peace, more love, more abundance, whether it's money, whether it's peace, like I said, it's more of who you were meant to become. It's not about doing more, it's about becoming more. And I say this, and it's like, when you are finally doing the thing that you feel called to do, there's that little voice that keeps saying, do the thing, start this, do that. If you People know there is that voice inside, and then either A, you shut it down and you say, it's just not the right time right now. My kids are in school, or my kids are too little. I used to say that, or whatever excuse, I don't have enough money, whatever it is. And I hate to say it, it's an excuse, because it absolutely is. Tell me one thing that you need all this money for. You begin, even if it's small, like you mentioned, a small step. You just begin. But when you're telling yourself all the reasons why you can't do the thing, that's what cripples us. So the more mindset is, how do you tap into the one thing that God, regardless of what religion you believe in, we have a higher self that created us in the same fashion that they created Bill Gates, Elon Musk, I don't know, whoever you think is amazing out there, Albert Einstein. we were created the same way with the same ingredients. It doesn't like there's nothing that you cannot do that you put your mind to. It's more than just positive thinking. It's available to you, right? And so when you finally align yourself with the very thing that with your gifts, that we all have gifts, that's when and only then you become more. And it's not me because I'm promoting my book, but you become more when you finally start doing the thing that you're gifted to do. I remember in my journey, even spiritually, Megan, I would be like, oh my gosh, to talk about this at church, like your own unique gifts. Like, what's my unique gifts? I'll never forget. I was 27 years old and I was like, I'm good at sales. I've been in sales my whole life since I was 3 years old. My mom told me I memorized my parents' sales presentation underneath the dining room table. I'm good at sales, but I truly felt like maybe there's something like I'm not that talented. What am I good at? Like, what's my gift? I know I promise it's like, I feel like that just happened yesterday because I just remember so much what that felt like. And, and oftentimes you'll see it. You'll see it. You'll see it. You'll see that somebody's pain became their purpose.
Oh,
Whether
definitely.
even on Shark Tank, I say this before, like you might see on Shark Tank that somebody created something because every time they took their kids to school, they had to pack their lunches and it was always getting soggy. I don't know, just whatever.
Exactly.
It was her pain in that moment and she created this thing and she's so passionate about it because she's a believer of it. And that's what I mentioned earlier about being your biggest influencer. Is because when you influence yourself, you're dynamo. You're that much more. Sorry, I got a little off topic there, but
No, I loved everything. The wound where your purpose is something that I so have come to believe for myself, and just I've seen that be so transformational. I mean, what a powerful way to move from somebody who used to be in a victim mindset because of all of her past chronic trauma to then do the type of work we're talking about, find your inner voice, accept those inner wounds, heal that feeling, get to a place of wholeness, and then all of those wounds that used to keep you small and keep you from living your purpose actually become your purpose. Like, to me, it's just so full circle and beautiful that it feels so intricately woven to the fabric of human development. I think that it's just noticing and accepting the invitation. When you were talking about the little voice and ignoring it when your excuses, life is busy, you don't have the money, your family needs you, it's all these things that of day-to-day life, that voice is just going to get louder. When it's tied to your purpose, it's not going to go away. It's going to get louder. Your health might be impacted. Your mental well-being is going to add more stress to your life. And so eventually it's going to try to get you to notice, or it's going to keep wreaking havoc in your life, is what I've kind of experienced.
absolutely. It does. And it's funny you say that. It does get louder because that's where, when you're doing the thing, there's that, unconscious habits and limiting beliefs that are trying to lure you back to what you feel comfortable, what you feel normal at that time, like it'll try to lure you back. So I
Yes.
love that you mentioned that because it's a real thing. I think that, awareness is so huge. Imagine you just get hit by a hurricane and you're just like, where did that come from? But when and I hate to say be so dramatic of a hurricane, what I mean is that when you know and understand your own human psychology, that happens to all of us. I don't care who you are. Everybody has thoughts that don't always serve them. All of us have it. It's what we do with those that will determine if you feel crippled by it, if you go again, or if you don't, or if you go sit down or you watch on the sidelines because you think that you're not meant to do the thing, right? That's what it boils down to.
You just mentioned the limitations a minute ago. So, those mental limits that we put on ourselves, or just subconsciously or kind of in us. What do you think are some of the most common, what have you come across, common limits that people are placing on themselves?
I'm not good enough. That's a big
Yeah,
one. That's a big
it's a
one.
big
That's a
one.
big one. And listen, I've coached and I still do many women and men actually that appear to be so confident. I think we all have our own unique weaknesses or insecurities. But when you see confident people that just don't believe that they can do the thing, that they're just not good enough because why? Because you're watching other people doing the thing that you wish you could do. And they're like, and we hear it all the time, like they've been doing it for like a decade and you're just starting. and you think that it's, you're just going to get the success overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. You build yourself. You build yourself every day. Every day you're making a difference and impacting yourself and your journey. You're impacting your journey every day that you walk the journey. But the success and all the things that you see, first off, it's a lot of it's a facade on social media. I'm sure you would agree. It's not always real. They don't show you all the behind the scene moments that you're on, that sometimes your life brings you to your knees because you're just in a crossroads where you don't know what to do, or you feel, that life has to be better. But those are the moments that break you, and the break you moments is what pulls you towards your purpose.
Yes, and that little inner voice, that negative critic, yeah, I think you call it as looking your the automatic negative thoughts or ants, which I think is a helpful term. How do we untangle those? How do we start, breaking away from that pattern that is so ingrained in us from childhood? What does it look like to start shifting that? Because I think sometimes it's the only, for many of us, it's the only inner voice we've known.
Yes,
And
true.
so, with that in mind, it's like, how do we start getting to that truer inner voice and silencing that critic that we've just come to know way too much?
Absolutely. I think the biggest way is to interrupt the pattern. I mean, that's just reality. I mean, when you're getting a thought that doesn't serve you, it's first off, it's going to change how you feel. And when it changes how
Mm.
you feel, it'll impact the action or the lack of action that you don't take, right? Those two things are going to happen. And so it's easier said than done when it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready. I'm not doing this thing. The first thing is to challenge the thought. I always start there. Challenge the thought. And listen, I wrote the book. I'm going to show it. I wrote the book, The More Mindset, and I still have to do that. I still have to counter it. And I hate to say counter it, but challenge it and say, is this really happening? Or am I just overthinking? Am I just being overly cautious? Am I just second guessing myself? It's like you really have to go through doing that because it truly is a muscle that you're practicing. It's never going to be perfect. I catch myself and I'm like, wait, Diana, those thoughts do not serve you. And so I call a chapter in my book part of a part of the chapter where I talk about change the channel. And imagine Megan watching a show and it makes you feel anxious. It's suspenseful, or maybe it's a scary channel. You're just like, oh my gosh, are they gonna get the girl? Like you're just feeling your heart palpitation. I've seen my husband back when he used to watch True Blood. I never liked that show, but like he used to watch True Blood and I would see him have anxiety over it. He would be like, and I'm like, man, and he's not a scary suspense guy. Like he does not like scary movies ever. And I'm like, for someone that doesn't, I can see how this is affecting you and I can see you panting. It's the same with life. You're on a channel that's not serving you. So if I'm going to go on stage and all I keep thinking about is how I'm going to forget what I'm saying, how is that going to make me feel? My heart might palpitate. You see, this is real science. Well, you're sometimes some people their palms will start to sweat. So the biggest thing to do in that moment is to change the channel. It's that easy. It's simple. It's like I don't have a remote, but I have my little hair wand. You can pretend that this is your remote, and you're like, this doesn't serve me, and you change the channel. Now, from a neurological perspective, this is neuroplasticity at its finest, and we have access to it whenever the heck we want. So if I'm feeling anxious about something, I change the channel and I say, what would change my state right now? Well, I see myself on stage landing my pitch or whatever I was doing, or I'm getting off the stage feeling good. Someone's high-fiving me. I'm feeling the energy. I'm telling you, let me just get a little. I love quantum physics and I love neuroscience and how the brain works. And when you actually imagine it in your mind, you become the thing. And I know that might sound a little too woo woo for some people, but it's been shown that what we experience, right? When I don't know, when I land that business opportunity, for example, it already happened once before. Now that sounds creepy just just on paper, right? Like just if you write like that does sound a little like, what do you mean? Because you imagined it in here on in your mind unconsciously or consciously. If you do it both, man, you're giving it the proper juices. But you did imagine that this was possible and you believed in your heart of hearts, somewhere deep down, that this would happen, right? So you've already imagined it. And so imagination is such a friend. You'll see athletes, whether it's Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan, you name it. They will say it time and time and time again. I don't care if it's like a business owner, entrepreneur, you hear it and you see it. And I've done it myself. I imagine what I want. I imagine what I want. Does that mean, Megan, that every single time Tiger Woods imagines a hole in one, he's going to get it? No, no. But it's a muscle you practicing. You just know that, okay, I'm being nervous because I'm wondering that, maybe I'm not going to get this promotion. Okay, what's the opposite feeling? Well, you know what? Everything is happening for my greater good. You release the
That's right.
expectation.
Yes.
Now you're on a different channel of like, okay, everything's happening for my greater good. It's going to work out. And even if it doesn't, I'm good. Right. So it does take work. And I think it's fun for me. I remember going to my, back in my self-discovery days, I would question things and it was like a game. To me, it was like a game because I was like, huh? How did this just happen? I was thinking positively, but I was imagining something different. And all of a sudden I got the very thing that I was obsessed about thinking about. And then I'm like, that's a coincidence. Like I was like, playing devil's advocate. Oh, that just happened. That's a coincidence. And then boom, I would do it and do it and do it. I even, I hate to say I attracted my boys, but manifested. You see all these words, but in reality, it's what you want in your heart. And when you know what you're after,
that's right.
Life will meet you there. We'll meet you there.
It's so true. I feel like so much of what you're describing reminds me of the snowball I keep mentioning as you keep going through this raising of your consciousness is how I think a lot of what we're talking about is the work that does that for us. And it is fun. And to me, it's like as you take these baby steps forward and you start noticing, why not notice the good? Why not visualize the best outcome? Why not? It's to me, it's like I can't think of a downside, whether or not I can prove it from a universe perspective or a quantum physics perspective or a religious perspective. I can't always prove the theory. However, if you're seeing positive outcomes, it just keeps getting fun. And it's like, keep following those positive outcomes. I just love that. And so it's making me think of now people that fully are embracing this mindset, so now I think of the people you've helped amplify their performance through this work. What do you think in that kind of state, describe what success looks like from their vantage point? You think of people living this work, because I have a feeling success probably might be defined a little bit differently than we've all grown up in the kind of corporate ladder, climb, grind, compete. So how exactly would you define, or even not fully define, it's probably unique to the person, but just some themes you've noticed as people live this mindset, how success ends up looking for them?
Of course, and I think that's a great word, success, right? Because I say, I'm successful, you're successful, he's successful. What is successful? And let me tell you, and this is what I believe success is. Success is your version of it. Only you know what that looks like, because what success looks like for you could look like failure for somebody else. What failure looks like for somebody else could be success for you, right? Like, it's your level. But for me, and what I've seen coaching people, because I've had people say, I want to be a millionaire. And I'm like, what would being a millionaire do for you? And he was like, I'll be able to do X and this. And I said, why can't you do that now? I mean, people think that they have to wait until they get the money, wait until they have the success to be happy. But you start now. When you have nothing, you find something in your life in this season to be happy and grateful for, because that's going to catapult you. Okay, so I just had to preface that. But as far as success, from what I've seen and even for myself, success happens, yes, in the moment that you choose to be happy. I think that's success. When you wake up in the morning, Megan, and you're able to see a beautiful life ahead, a beautiful day ahead, and you feel like you are truly living your purpose. That to me is success. When you say, gosh, I'm happy living my purpose. Not that everything's perfect. Not that the SHIT may not hit the fan. Okay. That happens in any business, in any part of life, personally and professionally. But to me, success is when you are living a life of truly aligned with what your purpose really is. And I've seen people that are like, I don't know what my purpose is. And I said, hey, You figure it out along the way. You know how? You know how you figure it out? By not allowing your circumstances to define you, by not allowing the limitations that might be real, that might exist, to limit you, to affect what you do. I don't care if you want to be a painter. Can you go to the dollar store? Can you start grabbing paper at the dollar store and pencils and start to create when you get home? I don't have a home. Okay, well, where are you? Go to a park. I kid you not. When you go to the park and you get your pencils and you get your color, whatever you're doing, just by doing the thing, you're vibrating at a different level. Now, this does sound weird for some people. What is vibrational? We have vibrational energy that we emit into a frequency. It's a frequency that we emit. And this is science. You can prove it, by the way. Earlier, I just wanted to preface something. There has been such a research nerd. I love statistics. I love
Me too.
Harvard studies. Like, I like things
Yes.
that actually have been backed up. I've even seen studies that are complete BS, and that's okay. Like, maybe they thought it was real. And I love to see what I'm talking about and make sure that we're fact checking stuff. But you put a person that's really positive in a room or in a dorm or in a house or in an environment, even at work, around 4 or 5 negative Nancys, that person will be impacted. That's why they say one bad egg will affect another. There has been research that shows that. And furthermore, from a science level, even there's been a study that they did where they put these a device with wires just to kind of be able to measure the activity that was happening inside the brain. And there's such research out there that really shows the power of visualization, the power of imagining a better outcome. And even if you don't get it, my gosh, let me tell you something. The more you imagine a better outcome, the more you're going to get what you want. And if you're imagining a better outcome, but then you sit down and you don't do the work, you don't do the gratitude, you don't make an effort to find a solution, if you're not making an effort, don't worry about how you're going to find a solution. Just be about the possibility that you can probably get an option or a solution. It's all your perspective, right? Like you mentioned earlier, it's the lens that we choose to put on. I do have a pair of glasses here, but it's the lens. So if I get these glasses and I'm looking at now, it's a lens of possibility. And let me tell you, life will take you and spit you out the way that life wants to do it. And if you allow life, social media, the news, your friends, your people, like maybe your mom and she loves you, or your dad, but they're too busy in your ear about what you're doing. And right, like I as a mom, listen, I have kids and older kids that I always will speak truth to them, whether they like it or not, whether they want to hear it or not, until the day I die, right? I will always do that. So I'm not trying to dismiss what parents do, but I do also know that there's a lot of parents that are trying to keep their children to be safe and to have a plan B and to go to school and to do all the thing we've been taught to do. But it is a lens. It's a lens that you choose to put on for yourself. If you want a lens of possibility, I promise you, you will back it up yourself. You're going to see what's possible. If you put a lens of all the reasons why it's not going to work out, all the excuses, you're not going to get very far.
Oh, so much there. I loved all of that. And these next few questions are in a segment I call Rapid Reel. They're just ones to help hone in on some more instinctive, just whatever phrases or thoughts that come to mind. The first one is, what's something that you think that higher performers get wrong?
What's something that a higher performer gets wrong is money is going to give them happiness. And there's nothing wrong with a high performer being ambitious. Trust me, like, as we mentioned earlier, when you come from nothing, even like I love fashion. I'm just giving you an example. I love fashion. And even when I had no money, it didn't matter back then. It was Kmart or, wherever I could, even like the Goodwill, like you dress the way that you like fashion. When I'm able to afford designer stuff, I just have expensive taste in fashion. There's nothing wrong with that. I truly believe that you wear your blessings well. You work hard for your blessings, like whatever it is that it could afford you. But if you're putting your happiness on the material things, on this, on that, on the cars, on the Lamborghinis, so I say higher achievers because if you're a high achiever, you're likely bringing in the money and you're chasing the money. You're chasing the money. I was chasing the money, Megan, to just put food on the table, to make sure that my children didn't get evicted. Right. So I think what we high achievers, the number one thing that I would say they get wrong is that they're chasing the money. Chase the purpose. Chase the purpose. Be about the purpose. Be about the customer. Be about the people impacted by the business that you offer. And I promise when you're so focused on the impact that your business is making for your customer, you will get the things if you really want. There's nothing wrong with wanting a Lamborghini and wanting material things. I don't believe that there's anything wrong with that. It's when you just chase that and there's no purpose behind what you're doing that's not scalable. And then you see people that are billionaires. I happen to meet one before, are miserable, that they're not happy.
Gosh, wouldn't it be great if all of us could meet a few miserable billionaires, actually spend some time and see how not happy they are? I feel like that would be a motivating activity. So when somebody lives their purpose, is living the success that they've defined for their life, what do you think that feels like in your body when you're living that kind of aligned life?
What you feel, I mean, listen, when you align yourself, it's like getting chills all the time. I mean, listen, when I'm shooting my podcast, when I'm on stage talking about whatever I'm presenting on, I get chills all the time. All the time. And all the time. When you say physical, what does that feel like? I mean, you feel your heart is full. Your heart is so content because you're in, you're where you are where you belong. You are where you belong. And there's no greater feeling physically, emotionally, mentally. And let me tell you something, just because it's on my mind. I love what I do. I love helping others. I love going and speaking on stage and making a difference and impacting the people in the audience that, quite frankly, I was hired to do. I love all that. I love being on podcasts, but there is burnout. There's a real thing. I just want to preface that because as
Yes.
people
Yeah.
think, oh, I'm just a workaholic. I'm doing what I'm in my purpose, in my alignment. That's beautiful. But you're the machine. You're the engine that has to be, you have to tune up and do the oil and change the tires and all that. And I did do crazy and burn myself out more times than I can count because I'm like, I love this. I could do it all day. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think the beautiful thing. But you also have to take care of yourself and take care of your mental health.
I love the responses you're given because you're actually teeing up the next question beautifully because the next question was when you do get burnout and you feel misaligned, what's an activity or two that that's your go-to personally to get back into alignment? What helps you kind of recalibrate yourself?
Let me tell you one little trick I do during the alignment and living your life in alignment and doing what you will love and all the purpose. Like I'm on stage, Megan, and I will in the middle, like you feel, I personally, I feel it. Even in the middle of a podcast, I do it on stage more times than I could count. And I'll stop in the middle of, like, I'll talk, I'll say my point. I just have a lot of energy I'm exerting because I'm so passionate creature and I just don't know any other delivery. It's just really how I deliver what I say. And so, but it wears me out. It does. It really does. It wears me out. And so when I do it to a magnitude, it depends. How long am I talking and what do I have? Did I just get off a podcast and then I go on stage 3 hours later? Like, believe it or not, like your body, I'm in my 40s. Okay. It was different when you're younger. But one trick I will say is that I'll stop in the middle and I'll say, let's all take a deep breath together. I bring them with me and I do a deep breath. And I say this in my book, just take a deep breath. You can hold it for 5 if you can, and then release it for 6 or 7 or 8. As long as, like, let me just say really quick, you take a deep breath slowly and you count whatever number you land on, and then you hold it for 4 or however many. But the release has to be longer than the inhale because either way you slice it, just taking a deep breath, that centers your nervous system. And I share this because when you mention when life feels whatever, don't wait until you're done working to take care of yourself. You can do it in the middle of your day. I do it because I need to take a nice deep breath. And I just say, you know what a great opportunity. what a great opportunity to just bring the audience with me. I do it all the time because it's real and it's beneficial. If it wasn't benefiting them and only benefited me, I wouldn't do it. But it just does. And so
Yeah,
that's one
yeah.
thing I will say, it's a real hack. And there's power breathing in through your nose and what it does to your body, to your mental health. And that's what I practice, honestly. I used to put like a timer in the middle of my day. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't have a timer in the middle of the podcast. So I just make it a conscious effort to do that all the time. And if it means, if I've done this very seldomly, I'm not one to cancel appointments ever or cancel my meetings. But if I'm having a moment where I've just gone on bald tires because I'm like, oh, I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week. And then next week doesn't come. I'll clear my calendar. I will do it. It doesn't happen hardly ever. No. But that's a card in the back pocket that I know if I have to play that, I come first before my kids, before my husband, before my customers. I come first. I was never that way before, and I paid a
Yes, I love
price.
it.
And I paid the price.
Yes, that's incredible and such a good model. I'm even thinking of you with your breath on stage. I do that also to set up to right before my session. So when I first get up there and I do a little bit of an intro, I then do it in the beginning for two reasons. One, it calms my nerves. It just kind of it grounds me to the room. It helps me be present in that space. But two, I find that it does the same for the whole room in a way that brings us all more in alignment together. And, because you come in sometimes, and I've been to plenty of conferences, it's like, oh, who's this person? Sometimes it's after lunch and you're tired. It's like, we're not always so open and like excited. And it's like a lot of times we come in with a little bit of lens of judgment. And there's something about that pause and that breath that I feel just kind of helps that dissipate. And it just brings us all to this moment together and helps with openness. It's incredible. And then what you just shared is, to me, then doing it on stage is contagious. It's everything we're talking about. When you're living your purpose, you shine bright and people emulate that. It helps kind of, even without being a coach, just you being your authentic self, it invites and gives permission to other people to do the same. And that to me is powerful. Yes. So the last question in this section, and we're almost out of time, but the last one here is, what does more, the word more, what does that mean to you today?
More of who I was meant to become, more of living in alignment with my God-given potential, because the potential is as big as you can imagine it, right? More of that, more of that, more of living my life on our greatest gift, the power that God single-handedly has given each and every single one of us, is tapping into that, more of that.
All right. Before we get to the final question, is there anything we didn't touch on today that you wanted to share before we get to that last question? And also, how can folks connect with you and your work? We'll also include links on the podcast post when we share that.
I don't think that. I mean, listen, that's a great question, but I can always share so much more. I think you reminded me when you said what you do before you go on stage, and I think in any part of our lives, whether you're on stage or you're just going to work or whatever you're doing, in the morning, and I don't know what I would encourage everybody to do is like set your intention. As crazy as that might sound, like, what do you mean? That does not guarantee success for my day. Like, it just means that you're priming yourself. You're priming yourself, and you're starting your day with gratitude, with something that you're giving your mind, yourself, a direction, a target. Whether you get to that target, don't worry about it. What you want to be about is how are you starting your day? I always start my day with gratitude, and then of course setting that intention. Like today, I want to have more energy because maybe yesterday I didn't feel that much energy. I don't know. Or today I'm going to be more productive. I'm going to get all the 7 things out of my 15 that I have to get done because these are the most important. Just thought I'd bring that up.
Thank you. We have listeners who are right now maybe in their messy middle. Some might feel like they're at a rock bottom place. When you found yourself in those moments, as you look back in your past, what's a piece of advice you wish would have arrived sooner?
I wish would have arrived sooner is to, not overthink it. I think that we worry so much, and more times than not, I would have loved to know that 90% or more of our limiting beliefs are actually false assumptions. I wish I knew that because I would have wasted a lot less time worrying about how many times anyone listening can probably remember how many times did you worry and everything actually worked out. That's a robber that steals your joy, that steals your momentum and whatever it is that you're doing in life. It robs you from peace.
Yes. Well, Diana, I enjoyed our time together. Thank you for joining us. And for our listeners, if something in today's episode resonated with you, here are 3 simple ways you can begin bringing some of this into your own life. First, start paying attention to the thoughts and stories that automatically play in your mind. Awareness is the first step to changing them. Second, question the belief that harder always equals better. Sometimes your next level requires alignment, not exhaustion. And third, give yourself permission to want more. More peace, more fulfillment, more impact, more joy. You are allowed to expand beyond the vision of yourself that you've outgrown. Thank you all for listening. Until next time, stay messy, my friends. Before we wrap today, I want to invite you to be part of the Becoming is Messy community. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And if there's anything that resonates with you, please leave a review. Your feedback means the world to me, and it helps other people find this community. Follow me on social media. I'd love to hear your ideas for future topics, your questions, and stories from your own messy moments. And if you're feeling inspired, check out the Becoming is Messy shop, where you can grab a mug, a t-shirt, or something else that reminds you to embrace your messy magic every single day. A huge thank you to the incredible Wolves and Sheep for providing the music for Becoming is Messy. Check them out on your favorite music streaming platform. As we close out today's episode, remember this: messy is just another word for growing. So keep showing up, keep laughing, and keep making beautifully awkward progress. Until next time, stay messy, my friends.